Over the next 2 weeks, I'm going to be giving talks that are seen by tens of thousands of people. I'm also helping our team prepare all of their talks so that we're all aligned on messaging and storytelling. I want to give you my top tips for giving a really great tech talk that really connects with audiences.
Tip number 1, tell stories. Even if you're giving like a 20-minute talk, you should still be including 2 to 3 stories in that time. Now, a lot of people take stories to mean, well, we were thinking about this and so we did this, but that's not a great story. A great story is something that's going to connect to your audience on a human level. What do I mean by that? You need to pick a place, a time, a moment, a conversation, and actually act out that conversation. On Tuesday, I was sitting at my desk and my boss called me and he was like, "Steven, what are you doing sitting at home?" That sort of thing, right? Where you're actually acting out and you're giving people a sense of the moment that really tells the story. And it's the details of the setting, of the place, of the feelings, of the emotions, of the ideas, the reactions that people had, and all of those little nuances that come together that really connect people to what you're saying. And then every story that you tell, you can end it with something like, "The reason I'm telling you this is because," and then that's when you make the connection. You explain why you're telling the story, right? If you're telling a story about a moment you were frustrated, you say, "The reason I'm telling this is because we often all get frustrated and then we have to get through it by doing XYZ," for example. And this even comes up a lot in technology. Some people don't think that there's room for storytelling in technology, but even if you're presenting a new feature or a new capability, talk about the idea. Talk about where it came from. Talk about the first conversation you had about that idea, where you were sitting across from someone and they were presenting something and you got this little magical idea in your head and you were jumping up and down. You're like, "I have to tell the world about my idea. I have to get this built." Those sorts of details, those sorts of connections in the form of storytelling are what's going to make your audience care about the things that you say. So with every presentation that I help people with, one of the questions that I ask are about calls to actions and feelings that we're going to be creating. So every talk is designed to create some sort of outcome. And if you don't understand what the outcome you're trying to drive towards or what the measurable impact of that outcome is going to be, how do you know if your talk is successful? And so we're always looking for, what are the calls to action? Are you ending your talk with telling people go build XYZ? Are you telling people to go sign up for something? There's always going to be a request that you're making of people, even if it's just engagement, even if it's just thinking through an idea. There's always a call to action, and acknowledging what that is and understanding what people are going to do after they listen to your talk is going to make your talk more effective overall. The third recommendation that I have is really to spend some time and understand the perspective of your audience. Oftentimes we get very wrapped up in the things that we're talking about, right? Because we're experts. We spent all day thinking about these things. We spent all this time preparing a talk, and the audience didn't, right? They might not understand your jargon. They might not understand your acronyms. And so acknowledging that the context of your audience isn't the same as yours is really, really critical. Another piece of this is that while you are intimately aware of all of the parts of your talk, especially if it's a longer talk, the audience is going to become disconnected. They're going to lose track. They're going to pull out their phone, they're going to check their email for 30 seconds, a minute, and then they're going to try and get re-engaged in your talk and not know where you're coming from, not where you're going for. And so making markers throughout your conversation, making markers throughout your talk so that people understand where they're coming from, where they're going, and where they are currently is going to help them stay connected to you in your context, even if they get lost along the way. The last 2 recommendations I have are around how you construct your slides. So the first thing I would say is really keep your slides simple. Some of the best slide decks out there are just a single blank slide or a single image that evokes the right concept or feeling that is going to connect to all the things you're going to say. Right? People do not want to read your presentation. I would say at most put 30 or 40 words on a slide. And if you ever have more than 7 bullet points, you have too many. I see a lot in the tech space where we'll put up really complicated diagrams or charts or lists and we'll say, "I don't expect you to read this." If you don't expect someone to read it, don't put it in the slides. Just leave it out entirely because it's not adding any value. The last speaking tip I want to give you is to not use speaker notes. Anytime you ever include speaker notes where you've completely written out what you're going to say in the notes are going to lead you down the wrong path. They're going to lead you into over-rehearsing a set script that says things word for word in the correct way. What instead you should be doing is you should be leaving yourself markers, right? Your slide deck and your presentation should actually be a guide explaining to you what to say, when to say it, and the structure, but you should be so intimately familiar with your presentation and the concepts and the ideas that you're communicating that on any given slide you shouldn't need any notes. You shouldn't need to say, okay, I need to say this, then I need to say this, I need to say this. You should know all those things kind of by heart. And so that's really the point of rehearsal. The point of rehearsal is not to get all the words in the right order. It's to really make sure that you understand the concepts that you're communicating and the way the audience is going to hear and perceive those sorts of things. There are a ton of other really great ways to become better at speaking. Things like varying your pitch and your tonality and the rate at which you speak, even making things like pauses. But I think that all of these are really secondary to the storytelling that you're doing, right? If you get the right story, even if you're the worst speaker on the planet, even if you're saying over and over and over, people will connect with you and they'll understand the things you're trying to say and the way you're trying to say them. And hopefully they're going to have the same feeling that you're hoping that they're going to have when you went into setting up and creating that presentation.
I know a lot of my job is about communicating and organizing and leading, but I do like to get technical sometimes. So one of the projects that I'm working on right now is building out this ecosystems tool where we're actually going to measure and chart out the ecosystem of libraries and components and things like that for people. And so one of the cool things that I've been working on tonight is an automatic tool that will take a Angular project, build one from scratch, measure the bundle size, and then sequentially apply a series of patches and measure the bundle size and then undo that patch, apply another one. And with this tool, we can relatively quickly see what is the bundle size impact at an atomic level of each component in a component library that you might want to be adding. So I just pushed up the changes to GitHub. I'm really excited about this project and the potential it has for the future.